Kyrie Irving obviously didn't play last night. He hasn't played in the last 5 games due to personal reasons. What should we expect from him?
I think when Kyrie gets back, and by the way, the next game he misses will mean that in his Nets tenure, he will have missed twice as many games as he's played. He hasn't been durable, and even when he's been physically healthy, sometimes he hasn't been available, and maybe because of his behavior off the court, he won't be available even if his personal issues are settled to the point where he can play and he's physically ready. I mean, that's a lot of lack of availability from Kyrie. But let's say by the All-Star break, all that stuff is squared away and he's playing with this team. Kyrie has shown in the past that whether he's on ball or off ball, he is capable of playing with another ball-dominant. I mean, you want to call LeBron a backcourt player or a front-court player. LeBron runs your offense. He's played with a guy like that and has had to play off-ball at times and has also been, the primary ball handler at times. Kyrie has already shown that he's capable of playing with a guy like that. Now, LeBron is a more generous passer because he's a more brilliant basketball mind in that respect than James Harden, and probably that made it easier for Kyrie Irving. But I do expect, at least on offense, for the potential for Kyrie to fit in with Harden and KD.
Kyrie is the person that we should all keep our eyes on. And we should all keep our eyes on because, in reality, Kyrie Irving is going to be the third option on this team. And the question is, how receptive is he going to be to that? We don't know. We know that Kyrie's a superstar talent. We know that he's got the nastiest handling skills in basketball. As far as I'm concerned, he's box office. When he wants to play, he is worth paying to see play. But I'm going to tell you, Max, what I heard yesterday. I was reminded yesterday, and I read part of the quote to you on the air, where I was told that, listen, he keeps this up, the Brooklyn Nets may have the power to void his contract. Now, do I think something like that is going to happen? No. I do not believe that's going to happen. I don't think Kevin Durant's going to let that happen. I think Kevin Durant loves him too much. He values him too much. He respects him too much. He wants him there. That's not going to happen. And I do believe that Kyrie Irving, because Kevin Durant is his friend, in the end is not going to let KD down. I truly believe that. But that does not mean we get to negate mentioning what has transpired thus far. What has transpired thus far is that he's left them to hang and dry. Not just KD, but the Brooklyn Nets as an organization being very unpredictable. He's healthy. He's not playing. He's healthy. He's not playing. He's on social media, caught on social media, partying with family members and friends. He's on social media doing stuff for social justice issues, which we all appreciate and respect, particularly as black people in this nation. And we definitely owe him a debt of gratitude for, and his charitable tendencies. The WNBA can speak to that along with various others. His heart is clearly in the right place. But the focus, the discipline, the determination that comes along with being a star of a franchise and doing your job first, he has clearly not mastered that. And so because of it, you have to look at him and wonder what's going to happen, because what is the Brooklyn Nets as an organization supposed to tolerate? And dare I say, Max, what is the NBA supposed to tolerate? What kind of message is sent? If you remember, Max, I told you years ago, the only thing that I lamented about with LeBron James when he made the announcement, I'm taking my talents to South Beach, how he handled things with Dan Gilbert, owners remembered that came CBA negotiation time. And you never can ignore that, because usually it's not the individual player that gets his comeuppance down the road. It's the players that have less value, and the hammer is brought down on the collective whole because of the actions of a few. You never know with this stuff, and you got to pay attention to it.
Well, look, Kyrie has to look himself in the mirror right now, because the fact is, you're right to point this out, which you kind of alluded to. In Cleveland, he was the second best player in a big three. Now he is the third best player in a big three. That's a little different. But the reason I say he has to look at himself in the mirror is, who do you think is a better shooter, Harden or Kyrie? The answer, by the numbers, is Kyrie. He shoots the three better. Of course, Harden takes a lot more of them. he shoots free throws a little better. Although, again, Harden takes more of them. And in terms of finishing in the paint under the rim, I think Kyrie is the best I've ever seen. Certainly, he's on a very, very short list. So from Kyrie Irving's point of view, he's like, actually, when you break down the skills, how is this dude better than me? But he is, and that's universally acknowledged, and Kyrie has to ask himself why. Now, as far as James Harden's concerned, Stephen A., he's the dude who's going to have to be sacrificing, in fact, because really Harden's greatness is this. A lot of guys shoot the three as well or better than him, at least by the numbers, free throws too, all that stuff. Harden's greatness really comes out. His usage is so high. He plays so many minutes. He's involved so much in the offense, and yet he's able to maintain those rates. Usually, if you shoot from three or free throws a certain level, especially from three, the more you shoot it, maybe that's going to go down a little because you're taking tough shots, you're shooting a lot of them. Harden's doesn't at all.
Max.
A lot of his value is that kind of stuff, how he can fill it up. He's the one, Stephen A., who's going to be giving up touches that he normally wouldn't be giving up,
Max,
more than Kyrie.
I spoke to two coaches yesterday, and I'll end the segment by saying this, Molly. I spoke to two coaches yesterday. They laughed at them being in Brooklyn. They said, all the talent in the world, let's see what Kyrie does. Will he even be there, Stephen A.? And they left it at that. That's
Stephen A., let me ask you one thing real quick. You recall, I'm sure, and this is right before my time, when Earl the Pearl Monroe got traded to the Knicks from Washington and joined Clyde Frazier, and Clyde Frazier, a very different personality than Kyrie Irving, of course. The whole question in New York basketball is, how are these two dudes, right, Black Jesus and Clyde Frazier, going to share the ball? There's only one ball. They won a championship together. It's not impossible.
It's not impossible, but you got to want to work. They wanted to work. They wanted to show up to work.
Harden lands with the Nets, obviously. The Rockets get a package including Victor Oladipo, 4 first-round picks, and 4 first-round swaps. Indiana gets Karis LeVert, while Cleveland gets Jared Allen and Taurean Prince. Max Kellerman, you are up first. What were your first thoughts when you heard this went down?
So many. First, the Nets have to make the finals. They have to make the finals. Let's just assume for a second that Kyrie is on the team and will play for the Nets at some point this season. This is the only big three in the NBA. I don't mean they're 2 great players and here's their 3rd best player. I mean big three. And whenever we've seen a big three, they at least make the finals. Celtics put together Pierce and Garnett and Ray Allen. They won. Even when Miami failed, they failed in the finals when they had LeBron and Wade and Bosh. There's no other big three. 2 MVPs who are still at MVP level, and a 3rd guy in Kyrie Irving who's more than just an all-star. He has MVP talent and achieves that all-star plus production. You have those 3 guys, you're supposed to get to the finals at least. And they had to make the deal. You know, earlier I said, no, you don't trade for James Harden, don't mess this up. But then Dinwiddie was lost for the season. So, in fact, kind of counterintuitively, as you lost some depth, as the Nets lost depth and another ball handler in the backcourt, they actually had to lose more depth in order to get high-end talent to compensate. But they did lose depth. They lost Allen. They lost LeVert. And Houston got a haul. 4 firsts and 4 swaps. That's an amazing haul considering the leverage that Brooklyn had, because Harden was out of there. And this is what I mean when I say superstars, Stephen A., in the league have all the leverage. What do I mean by that? Well, they can sign where they want when their deal is up, LeBron, KD, whomever, right? And they go from team to team. But because of that, guys like AD, say whatever you want about how long it took. AD wanted to go to the Lakers. Where did he wind up? The Lakers. Say whatever you want to say about Harden and the ups and downs. He said he wanted to go to Brooklyn. Where did he wind up? Brooklyn. Let this be a lesson to the owners in case they didn't already understand. If you have a superstar, an MVP caliber player, he's going to wind up where he says he wants to go anyway. Make the best deal you can. Now, finally, Stephen A., they have their work cut out for them. Not only is this not a good defensive team right now, but they're not adding a guy who's like a stalwart defender, you know, in the first place. And James Harden, though his defense till this year, we'll throw this out, has improved through the years. And also, there's only one ball. And while KD is a super great player, with or without the ball, doesn't matter, James Harden and Kyrie Irving both really need and want and like that ball. So they have their work cut out for them. But this team is finals or bust this year.
Well, definitely finals or bust. We agree there. But what I would tell you is, as it pertains to what was on my mind when the deal was first announced, never has James Harden been under more pressure than he is this year. The same could be said for Kyrie Irving, whose career I believe is on the line. You have people looking at him and wondering whether he's worth the trouble. We know what an ultra-talented person he is. He's a superstar talent. We get all of that. But guess what? Right now, he can't play better than me. You know why, Max? Because both of us are not on the court. He's somewhere else other than the Barclays Center, on the road with his team. I'm on television. He ain't doing anything on the court that I ain't doing, because neither one of us are there. Think about that and put that in its proper perspective. It does not matter how great you are if you don't put your greatness on display and you don't appreciate your greatness to the point where you don't showcase it in the fashion that he is supposed to. In the case of James Harden, this is the deal. You in Houston, you wanted Dwight Howard, then you didn't. You wanted CP3, then you didn't. You wanted Russell Westbrook, then you didn't mind y'all parting ways even though y'all are still boys. In the end, because Daryl Morey and Mike D'Antoni ended up going too, you decided that you wanted out. Fair enough. But since you arrived in Houston and since you've averaged 25 a game every season in your career in Houston, 30 over the last 3 years, 29 over the last 4 minimum, 28 over the last 5 minimum, now you're playing with a dude who's better than you in Kevin Durant, who's a flat-out superstar in this game. Fresh off an Achilles tear, 18 months out of action, first 8 games playing this season, averaging 29 a game on 54% shooting. There is no excuse for the Brooklyn Nets not to make it to the NBA Finals. And the likelihood is that if we look at them and they don't make it, it'll be because Harden didn't show up, figuratively, or Kyrie didn't show up, possibly literally. And so as a result of that, I thought about the pressure that these two have on their shoulders because Kevin Durant is leading the pack. Not only is he a superstar, he is one of the most unselfish superstars we've ever witnessed on the basketball court. This dude was averaging 28 a game, shooting 17 shots a game. Kyrie was averaging 26 and shooting 20 a game. So think about that for a second here. And if somebody's going to sacrifice, who's going to sacrifice and make sure that Kevin Durant doesn't have to sacrifice any more than he already has? That's the question mark in all of this. Kevin Durant, as long as he goes out there and plays the way that he plays, we're not going to look at him. We're going to look at Harden or Kyrie Irving, possibly both, because somebody's going to have to sacrifice somewhere. Chris Bosh was a third wheel at sacrifice. Ray Allen was a third wheel at sacrifice. Klay Thompson was a third wheel who sacrificed. Who's going to be that guy that makes the sacrifice for the Brooklyn Nets here? That's why Kyrie Irving and James Harden are so pivotal in all of this. And that's what I thought about, Max. That's what first came to my mind when I first learned that this deal was done.
Obviously, those thoughts are legit. Only thing I would add in terms of who the pressure's on, I think there's a lot of focus on Kyrie because he seems to be melting right now, and James Harden because, okay, James, you want Dwight Howard, you want Russell Westbrook, you want Chris Paul, you want Russell Westbrook. Now, after a year, it doesn't work out. You want to go to Brooklyn. You're joining 2 other superstars. You better win. But in fact, Stephen A., think about who the best player on the team is. I think there's actually the most pressure on KD, strangely, because LeBron, wherever he goes, figures out a way to make it work. It's not just that he has supernatural passing ability.
I said that Kawhi Leonard is under the most pressure.
Okay.
We already had this conversation. But now, since James Harden did what he did and now he's with the Brooklyn Nets, I have a change of heart. And now I feel like he's under the most pressure because he's the one without a ring.
All right. You're right, because I didn't recall you saying that about Kawhi. My bad.
Look, the difference is there's pressure to get to the conference finals for sure for Kawhi. But we just saw it last season. And though Kawhi choked in Game 7, that wasn't normal for him in the playoffs. He had a very good playoff series, an excellent one, until then. It was Paul George who choked. And have they done it? That's what Paul George has done throughout his career in the playoffs. Have they added anyone that would change that? We were all talking about, what if they got Chris Paul? What if they got Rondo, right? They didn't get any of that stuff. No, they replaced Montrezl Harrell with Serge Ibaka. That's nice, but that's not the kind of addition that team needed to be considered the favorite.
What?
Let's be honest about this.
Max.
And you guys are saying Kawhi
Max,
because he's the best player on the team. Hold on, time out. KD is the best player on a team that already had Kyrie and is adding James Harden. He has to get to the finals, guys. He got to get to the finals.
Max, you know what? You something else, because about a month ago, or maybe even less than that, you was just sitting up here arguing me down, telling me how Serge Ibaka was a huge upgrade from Montrezl Harrell. Now you sitting up here saying, oh, it's a nice
It's a marginal upgrade. I didn't say huge. It's a marginal upgrade. And by the way, LeBron James got AD, right? AD, how did he play throughout the playoffs? Like an MVP. LeBron is with another MVP. Kawhi not with another MVP, let's be honest. But guess what? KD not only has Kyrie, who's been a killer in the playoffs, he's got another MVP, at least in the regular season. No one else has a big three like Brooklyn. You're going to tell me that the best player on that team, a guy who joined already a championship team, a 73-win team, to kind of reverse engineer his rings, that dude's not under pressure?
You know what, Max? And here's my issue. You know, first of all, you dissecting basketball with people who know more basketball than you. That's number one. But number two, and more importantly, this is the biggest thing that I'm going to bring up, Max. You're ignoring the storyline. In all seriousness, Max, you're ignoring the storyline. And I get what you're saying about KD. I understand. I get what Kendrick Perkins is saying even more about James Harden. Kawhi Leonard, 29 years old, man. He's 29. You calling out a cat that was 35 years of age at the time. What does LeBron do? He answers the call and delivers a chip to L.A. And he's now there, the prohibitive favorite. You still in town. You got Doc Rivers is out of there. He's no longer the coach. Montrezl Harrell is gone. Okay, Lou Williams is on the bench last night. I don't know why. I got to ask Ty Lue about that. But I'm just saying, we got to look. To me, to not focus on Kawhi is to completely let him off the hook about competing with LeBron. We want that confrontation, do we not? Do we not want that confrontation? Don't y'all want to see that?
Hold on.
I want to see that. I want to see that.
No doubt. But we're talking about the most pressure. And how can you, on the day after James Harden is traded to Kevin Durant's team, who already has Kyrie, how can you sit here and talk about, I'm missing the storyline, it's Kawhi? Yeah, that is a storyline. Kawhi is not playing with another MVP caliber player. They did not drastically address what the team needed to address.
But I didn't say James Harden wasn't under pressure.
Percy, you talked about a vocal leader, a floor general, but that's not what the Clippers did. They had marginal improvement at power forward. That's their big move. James Harden's coming to Brooklyn. Of course that puts more pressure on KD.
He's coming to Brooklyn, but the focus is also on what Kyrie Irving is going to do and how is Kevin Durant going to help manage all of that. In L.A., it's about that dude ultimately going against LeBron. I mean, enough's enough. I love Kawhi Leonard as a player. I mean, my God, he's one of the elite players. I want to see him against King James. You said you were coming to take the crown. Great. LeBron got the crown now. You gonna get it or what? You gonna go after him or what? What you gonna do? That's what I want to see from Kawhi. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
No, and Stephen A., you have a valid point. But here's my thing: if KD, Kawhi, LeBron James, Anthony Davis, Kyrie Irving, if those five guys decide to shut it down and retire tomorrow, they gonna be sleeping well that night with no regrets because they have champions.
That's fair. That's fair.
James Harden, if he retired tomorrow, he still gonna have that over
But
his
I got to
head
retort.
that he never won a title.
I got to retort to that. I got you, and I'll respond by saying this. Is it possible, stay with me on this, is it possible that James Harden and KD are flowing and then potentially Kyrie Irving becomes a disruptive force at the most inopportune time and it could compromise their success? Of course, that's possible.
Yeah, yeah.
But hold on. Wait, what I'm saying is, there's no such thing in LA. It's about Kawhi.
Yeah.
It's about Kawhi.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. Because then we just
Convoluted logic is that.
Then we just witnessed Paul George shut down on the Clippers last season. And I don't want to dive too deep into it.
What do you mean shut down?
Because he said he was dealing with mental health. And that's a sensitive subject.
No.
But
that was the first round. But he addressed it and then came out and was balling for the most part for the first few games against Denver before the collapse. He said that in the first round.
Yeah, but Stephen A., they wouldn't have got through the first round if it wasn't for Kawhi.